After years of exhausting teamwork, I was kicked out of my own guild. They have no idea what my true power really is, and very soon, they're going to regret it. 7 years. I wasted that much time serving the Kuros Guild. I was their shield, the man who stood between life and death, just so the smart ones on the team could shine. In a boss fight, I felt my shield breaking and my bones screaming in pain. I was holding that monster back all alone, screaming for help. Help that never came. Instead of support, I was met with cold, disgusted stares. The moment the monster was defeated and collapsed to the ground, the real faces of the people I called friends were revealed. The Guts leader left me right there, buried in rubble, in a rain that felt like it was mocking my face. That treatment was cruel. Kim Hantai called me a failure, useless. Sia laughed at my weakness. In Mian, Lee looked at me like I was some filthy insect. I was thrown out with a pathetic severance. 10 million won for 7 years of loyalty. You should know, 10 million won is roughly about $0.000. 7 years of my life, and I ended up completely broke. In that moment, I realized something. To them, I was never a teammate. I was just a tool to be used. But fate has its own twisted sense of humor. At the lowest point of my destruction, something awakened. Green windows appeared before my eyes, and calculations of possibility began to show up. A reality hack. That led me to the small epic guild. And there, the impossible happened. A wind spirit that had been sleeping for 12 years chose me. In a massive explosion that lit up the skies of Buchan. I was no longer the man who got beaten so others could win. I became a wind elementalist. Our hero has just unlocked a special power known as an elemental class. It gives him the ability to communicate with special beings and use their powers. In this world, heroes who form such contracts are called elementalists. They are extremely rare and highly respected. Even a single one is enough to rival an entire guild. Legends speak of them. First, Luca Harrison from England, the Mist Elementalist. Next, Malasai Soifua from Samoa, the Water Elementalist. And finally, Abu Bakr from Egypt, the Sand Elementalist. Each of these men is a hero on a completely different level. And now a new elemental hero has been born. Back at home after the explosion, Kim is still on the ground, while Jihan stands there, holding a glowing green orb. Behind him, you can already sense the shadows of other elementalists, ones who will appear along his journey of revenge. Jihan's new power is control over wind. The scene shifts to the guild building. Jihan is completely confused and asks, "What just happened?" Kim, sitting on the sofa, explains everything. Jihan asks if he really formed a contract with an elemental. She nods yes and confirms it. Kim tells him more about Sylph, saying this spirit controls the power of wind. She explains that Sylph had a contract with her late mother, which is why she believes it chose Jihan. He hesitates and says he can't believe it. He asks if there's any way to break this deal. Kim gives him the bad news. It's impossible. Once an elemental chooses a master, the bond cannot be broken. She says there is only one way to end the contract. If the master dies, Jihan stands there in complete shock. He feels totally overwhelmed and asks what he should do next. Kim crosses her legs, gives him a teasing smile, and stands up. She congratulates him on officially joining Epic, and casually asks if he had even looked at any other guild. The protagonist tells her directly that he never even thought about anyone else. He only wanted to join Epic. Hearing that, Kim blushes red with embarrassment and says his mindset is really good. Kim smiles and promises to help him master Sylph's powers. She's surprised because the protagonist is so eager. He says he wants to test his new powers immediately. With excitement, he forms a green orb in his hand and announces that it's time to go to an MA. That word means special zones filled with monsters. Behind them, you can see a blue dome. This place is ranked from 5 to 1, and the monsters inside match the rank level. Kim and the protagonist head out to train and explore his powers. Holding his sword and looking up, the protagonist declares that they're going to the rank 5 area in Bujin. Jihan trusts his hacks and says this place is perfect for testing his strength. Kim looks around nervously. He asks if something is bothering her. She shyly admits she has never trained inside an MA before, and she's scared. Jihan is shocked and asks why she kept that quiet. Kim admits that as a guild leader, it's a little embarrassing to say. As they enter the monster zone, the protagonist decides that this time, he will lead from the front, sword in hand, and Kim holding her staff. They move deeper inside. They pass through the wreckage of past battles between heroes and monsters. Jihan asks Kim to scan the dangers in the area. She tells him to give her a second. Kim checks the radar and says the monster here is a cockatrice. She explains it had built a nest in this area. Apparently, 2 weeks ago a truck overturned, and its babies scattered everywhere. Jihan draws his sword and says these creatures are the perfect targets for his new powers. Surrounded by collapsed buildings and destruction, the atmosphere completely changes. This is a battlefield, a place where blood is spilled, and fear takes over. Realizing they're alone, Jihan says that since it's only 2 of them, he'll have to act as both the tank and the damage dealer. Kim feels like something is wrong in the area. They keep walking until she senses movement in a nearby parking lot. A cockatrice appears behind a car, eating its lunch. The monster sees them, but doesn't drop its meal. Instead, it spreads its wings wide. Both Kim and Jihan feel an enormous pressure from the creature. They brace themselves for what's coming. Jihan quickly tells Kim to watch his back. While he faces the monster head-on, the creature takes a step forward, and the ground trembles under its heavy weight. It attacks, raising a massive claw to strike. Showing its terrifying strength, Jihan raises his sword just in time to block the attack. He smiles because he realizes he's not the same weak man he used to be. Still holding back the strike, Jihan shouts to Kim. Standing behind him, she begins casting a powerful spell. Her eyes glow as she launches an attack called Wind Arrow. The arrow crashes into both Jihan and the cockatrice, forcing them apart and shaking the entire area. The monster falls to the ground. The earth beneath it cracks open. This truly shows Kim's overwhelming power. Jihan steadies himself and praises her incredible aim. She smiles and says that no matter how she looks, she ranked first in her academy. They get caught up in talking and almost don't notice a flock of cockatrices approaching. Kim senses them first and shouts a warning. 3 birds are attacking from behind. He spins around, and his green eye glows again as his power activates. The incoming monsters get trapped in the shining green lines of his ability. A danger signal flashes above their heads. The protagonist sees the threats and speaks the name of his skill. Sampling. Then he asks the system to calculate the best ways to evade. A window opens. It shows the probability of escape if he drops to the ground. As the monster charges straight at him, he simply ducks. The window confirms the success rate was 82%. Looking at his hand, he immediately begins forming the same green orb again. His new skill is called Haste. In an instant, every bird in the area is slaughtered. He moves through all of them without a single scratch, leaving their heads on the ground like trophies. Sword raised, he turns back to see what his new powers can truly do. Kim is completely stunned by what she just witnessed. She says he used Sylph's powers perfectly. She points out that he hasn't even had these skills for a full day, and wonders how this is even possible. As he stands there in an intense pose, Kim asks, "Are you some kind of genius?" The protagonist sheathes his sword and calls out to Kim. He picks up a few feathers as loot and tells her that from now on, they'll farm continuously. But as he bends down, he thinks this is a great way to test his powers. Suddenly, his skill activates again. He realizes something is still wrong. He turns and immediately yells at Kim to look behind her. Another monster appears right behind them, but this one is much larger than the others. The tension spikes. The creature launches a powerful attack straight at Kim. The sound of the strike echoes through the entire area. He catches her just in time, before she gets crushed, holding Kim safely in his arms behind the bird. The protagonist asks if she's okay. She confirms that she is. Both of them ready their weapons. Wondering why this monster is here, Jihan watches it carefully and realizes this monster is a mutant. His eyes glow green again as his skill activates once more. A system interface flashes, calculating escape probability, and above the mutant bird, a glowing danger mark appears. Jihan steps forward to protect Kim and anxiously tells her to hold the beast off for just 1 minute. She looks confused and asks what he's planning, but he's already running toward the danger, promising to be quick. The creature empowers its claws with strange energy. It attacks him head-on, beak open, wings fully spread. As the deadly claws come crashing down, Jihan grips his sword and dodges to the side. He shouts a signal for Kim to attack. From behind, Kim releases her magic. She strikes it with a slow wind spell. The spell works. It binds the monster just long enough for Jihan to reach it. The bird lunges, trying to kill him, but the magic slows it so much that it can't land a hit. Jihan drops from above, driving the creature into the ground with his sword. But the binding spell begins to crack. Just as he goes for the finishing blow, the magic completely shatters. The bird is instantly freed. It reacts fast to save itself. A clash erupts. The bird opens its beak to bite, and Jihan swings his sword. In that moment, the insults from his old team echo in his mind, especially the part where they called him useless. Snap! The monster's beak slams shut with force. The empty air visual interface shifts from green to an angry red. Jihan activates Wind Cutter. In an instant, the bird is sliced into multiple pieces. Jihan gently lands back on the ground as the scene changes. The camera angle moves to two strong legs standing nearby. We look up and see a tough man wearing a shirt that shimmers like wind. He looks truly impressed. He says he had absolutely no idea that another elementalist was roaming around here. This is Doha Yunnan, the Korean Earth elementalist. The scene shifts to a completely different place. A ruined city filled with debris and sadness. The wind screams through the wreckage as a building collapses into dust. Suddenly, the ground splits open. A massive monster with glowing red eyes emerges. Behind it, a swarm of armored insects appears, and Doha jumps into battle. He taunts the creatures, saying, "Come on, catch me." He unleashes a huge blue energy blast. Activating his provoke skill, he kills one insect right as it tries to burrow into the ground. The blast hits its target, creating a loud explosion that shakes the entire area. But even after landing a direct hit, the big man struggles to hold the insect down. He looks back over his shoulder and yells at Kim to hurry up and attack, because his grip is loosening fast. Sion Lim steps into her battle stance. Watching the musclehead fight the beast, she announces that she knows exactly what to do. She locks onto the target and releases her spell, Chain of Thunder. A massive electric strike crashes into the swarm of insects, making them all writhe together in pain. Kim watches with satisfaction as the creatures twitch, and then suddenly explode into small pieces. As the dust settles, the air is still filled with static electricity. She grips her staff and starts bragging. She says she honestly can't believe the team was scared of such weak creatures. The tough man isn't impressed. He warns her to aim better next time, because she almost roasted him along with the monsters. She snaps back, telling him to stop whining and lose some weight. He rolls his eyes, saying whatever. He tells her to move on. But before he can leave, a surviving insect crawls out and grabs her. She panics. She screams for someone to cover her. By habit, she looks for Jihan to protect her from the attack. Then the bitter reality hits her. Jihan isn't in the guild anymore. There's no one to watch her back. Just as fear takes over, something tears through the sky and lands a crushing blow on the remaining insect. Sion Lim is stunned. When the dust clears, we see it was Guts, the red-haired warrior, who saved her. He strikes a powerful pose, leaning on his sword like nothing even happened. Sion Lim says his name, relieved that he's still alive. The camera pans across the battlefield, now filled with the corpses of insects killed by the Kuros Guild. Sion Lim and the tank lean against a low wall, trying to catch their breath. She complains that the tank is stuck against the wall and she can't move him, because she's completely exhausted. The big man angrily says these monsters felt different, almost like they were powerful mutants. Sion Lim strongly disagrees. She insists they weren't mutants or anything special. They were just worthless mobs. Suddenly, Guts steps in front of them and shuts down the excuses. He says there was nothing strange about them. They were just big bugs. Nothing more. Fists clenched in anger, he demands an explanation. He punches the wall and asks the hard question. Why did they struggle so much against such minor enemies? The big man and Sion Lim stammer, try and make excuses for their performance. Suddenly, a shadow appears behind them. They turn around, looking even more terrified. It's Mian Lee. She's drenched in blood from head to toe, like she just walked out a horror movie, holding her dagger and staring at them with bloody eyes. She coldly announces that District 2 has been cleared. Guts turns and shouts her name. He reminds her that he specifically told her not to overdo it. Veins bulge on his forehead as he sternly warns her. If she gets into trouble again, there will be no one left to save her. She glares back and angrily says she knows the situation and doesn't need a lecture. Muttering Jihan's name, the tank wonders where that guy has gone since being kicked out. No one has seen him. For some reason, that makes Guts furious. He raises his hands in anger and tells him to stop being lazy. He storms off, shouting behind him that Jihan was useless anyway. And then in the next episode, they'll be even better without him. The squad moves deeper into the ruins. Meanwhile, the protagonist stands there, releasing intense energy as his power surges. Behind him, Kim is literally trembling. She stares at the aura coming off him in shock. In her mind, she's panicking, because Jihan just defeated a mutant monster all by himself. She wonders what kind of monster he really is. He looks extremely confident in his new power. His special, glowing green eye fixed on the horizon. Meanwhile, someone is watching them from afar. A stranger with a backpack walks toward Jihan and Kim. The stranger wonders if the two of them really killed a mutant alone. He gives a wicked smile, thinking this must be his lucky day. Seeing the torn monster pieces, Kim rushes to Jihan and asks if he's hurt. Before he can answer, Jihan collapses straight to the ground. Kim panics and jumps to catch him. Before he hits the floor, she throws her staff aside and lifts him into her arms. She begs him to say something, terrified that he'll die, and leave her alone in this dangerous place. She screams his name, looking extremely worried. Suddenly, Jihan opens his eyes. With a creepy smile and lifeless eyes, he whispers, "We still have to get back to farming nonstop." Kim's expression instantly shifts from worry to disgust. She realizes he's fine. He's just obsessed. She slams him onto the hard ground, angry that she actually thought he was hurt. As they rest on the ground, Kim makes something clear. This is a mountain of meat. It's way too much for just two people to carry back. Jihan nods and admits she's right. Suddenly, the man we saw hiding earlier steps out from behind them. He speaks up, saying he can handle this problem. He removes his ski goggles and greets Kim and the protagonist in a friendly way. Keeping his eyes shut like an anime character, he introduces himself. His name is Sa Mjang, but he's known as Sashimi. He claims he runs a professional monster cleanup service. Kim looks confused. She didn't even know a job like that existed. Jihan explains that these are pros, who specialize in cutting up and transporting monster loot. But Jihan isn't naive. He asks Sashimi directly, "What is a cleaner doing inside a dangerous MN?" Sashimi already has an answer ready. He says his company is a startup, so he has to work harder than the big guys to make a profit. He asks if he can take care of all the remaining cockatrice parts for them. Kim feels relieved. Kim is just happy that someone showed up at the right time to do the heavy work. But Jihan stays quiet. He's suspicious. Something about this guy doesn't feel right. Sashimi leans on his bag, waiting for a yes or no, completely unaware that Jihan already considers him shady. Sashimi puts on gloves and says he needs to inspect the goods first. He touches the dead monsters and whistles. He says the quality is excellent. The cuts are clean and precise. He tells them that with this level of quality, they can sell these parts for a very good price. Kim is practically bouncing with joy. She starts dreaming about moving her grandmother into a bigger place with that money. Sashimi gives a wicked smile. When she doesn't notice, he tells them they can keep the money from the meat. But while he's talking, his hand quietly slides toward a glowing purple stone left behind by the mutant. He grabs it, thinking he's being clever. He plans to give them the leftovers, while he steals the real reward. The narrator explains what that stone is. It's a mana crystal. These only drop from mutants, and they're extremely valuable. But before he can slip it into his pocket, something strange starts happening. Multiple stones begin floating in the air around Sashimi, forming a circle. He looks around in panic, wondering what's going on. Kim and the protagonist take battle stances, completely confused by what's happening. Meanwhile, Sashimi is completely bound by the floating stones. He starts screaming for help. He even offers to give back the mana crystal, if they just let him go. Panic spreads as Sashimi hears a voice saying, "That's why I hate cheaters." The voice asks if he knows stealing is wrong. Kim and Jihan watch in shock as a new man steps forward. It's the tough guy in the wind-shimmering shirt. He walks towards Sashimi, running a hand through his hair, veins bulging, and calmly says the crystal belongs to him. Kim steps forward and asks if he's Doha from the Dice Guild, the world's #1 hero. She asks what someone like him is doing in a place like this. Jihan isn't impressed. He grips the mana crystal tightly and angrily says, "This belongs to Epic, not Doha." He asks if a rank 1 hero is really planning to loot them. Doha replies that the association specifically sent him here to kill the mutant and retrieve the crystal. The two men glare at each other. Jihan's eyes begin glowing green again. He asks why he should care about the association's orders. His ability activates. Windows open, calculating his chances of winning against Doha. Doha puts his hands behind his back and takes a deep breath. He says Jihan misunderstood him. Jihan blinks, and the man disappears from sight. Instantly, Doha reappears right behind the protagonist. He whispers, "That wasn't a question. That was an order." A slap lands across Jihan's face. He thinks, how did Doha move that fast? There wasn't even time to react. Jihan finds himself pinned down. He realizes his face is about to kiss the ground. The flip-flops wearing man presses Jihan's head harder into the dirt, repeating that he wasn't asking for permission. The protagonist looks up with a face that says he wants to fight. Doha looks down and calls Jihan his new elementalist, then drives his head even deeper into the ground. Sashimi watches in terror. He thinks that out of all the heroes in the world, they had to run into the worst one. The narrator explains who this man really is. This is Doha, the owner of the Dice Guild, and one of the country's top 5 heroes. He is an earth elementalist, the only one with this special power. He's basically a hero with divine-level strength. Kim lifts her staff and shouts for Jihan to move back, but Doha immediately warns her. He tells her it would be smarter to stay out of this fight. He adds that one wrong move, and Jihan will be crushed like a bug under the king of the hill. Kim realizes she's helpless here. She grimaces, knowing he isn't lying. Humiliated, Jihan slams his hand into the ground in rage. He glares up at Doha and asks, "Do you really think you can kill me?" The protagonist is completely furious. He screams that Doha is the one who's going to die here. Jihan activates his wind bomb ability and pushes Doha back. Doha manages to block the strike, but the force still sends him flying. As he's dragged across the ground, he wonders what just happened. He was sure he had crushed the protagonist's skull into the dirt just a second ago. Doha realizes this kid always has some trick. Jihan begins to stand, looking a little worse for wear. Doha understands how he survived. At the last second, Jihan had summoned his elemental to take the blow. Not only that, he had hidden the spirit to prepare a surprise counterattack. The antagonist is injured but still standing. Doha laughs and calls him an interesting guy. Suddenly, Jihan's ability activates again. A window opens, calculating the chances of continuing this fight. The result is terrifying. 95% chance of death. Looking at Doha, the protagonist realizes the bitter truth. He used all his mana in that last attack, and Doha didn't even get scratched. Jihan admits that rank 1 heroes are on a completely different level. Doha dusts himself off and stands tall. Jihan knows he can't win right now. The tough man in flip-flops stomps the ground and calls out to his new rookie. He says the score is 1 hit each, and asks, who wants to start round 2? Instead of attacking, Jihan throws the mana crystal straight toward Doha. He tells him he won the fight and can keep the prize. Doha catches it, but looks angry at this attitude. He asks if the boy really thinks he can just surrender like that. The protagonist replies that the crystal was what Doha wanted anyway. He says he has no intention of fighting him. Then Jihan plays his trump card. He cites Hero Law Article 38, Section 9. It states that Doha is legally forced to accept his surrender. Doha gets annoyed and complains that things were just getting good. Suddenly, a loud noise stops the confrontation. Doha looks back and says someone arrived at the perfect time. 2 helicopters appear in the sky. Holding the crystal, Doha lets out a long breath and says, his guild's backup has finally arrived. Sion, bouncing with excitement, says the choppers belong to the Hero Association. A woman leans out of the helicopter and yells at Mr. Yunnan, scolding him for wandering off alone again. The flip-flops man shows her the mana crystal and tells her he just had some business. He adds that she's already being annoying. Doha looks at the kid and warns him. Next time, no one will be there to save him. He asks his name. The protagonist answers, Jihan Yu, member of the Epic Guild. Doha repeats the guild name with full sarcasm, and then Doha offers some advice. He tells them to move beyond rank 4 and pass the exam. Looking at the protagonist, he says he can genuinely recommend him. Jihan looks confused and asks why. Doha simply says, because I want to. That's all. The helicopters fly off and leave the area. Inside the chopper, Doha asks his assistant, did you hear that? He tells her to file recommendations for the airbag's waifu and the protagonist. The assistant argues. She says the exam is in 2 days, and she can't just recommend anyone like that. She also adds that their guild hasn't even gone through the proper formation process yet. Then she pauses. She notices a wound on Doha's hand. She wonders, how did he even get injured? Doha just smiles and says, "This is going to be fun." Back at Epic headquarters, Sashimi is on his knees, begging for his life. Do tells him to save the apologies and be ready to get beaten. Sashimi begs for just 1 minute to explain. He says he heard them talking about the rank 4 exam. He says the deadline is in 2 days and asks if they really think they can pass with their current equipment. He points at their gear and calls it trash. He says they're basically asking to fail. Sashimi offers a deal. He knows a secret place where they can upgrade their gear. He says if Siha and Jihan aren't satisfied, they can kill him later. Siha and Jihan look at each other. Thinking it over, they decide to trust him one last time and tell him to show them the way. The scene shifts to a weapon shop. Sashimi opens the door while the other two wait behind him. He nervously looks around and says there's no one here. Siha gets irritated and asks the cleaner if he tricked them again. Sashimi swears he didn't. Suddenly, a voice comes from right behind them, asking, "Who are you?" The mysterious person laughs and says the shop isn't open today. Then he asks what they want. Someone makes it clear right away. That man is definitely a dwarf blacksmith. The narrator explains that dwarves are a race famous for their incredible forging skills. They make S-rank swords, which makes them extremely popular among high-level heroes. Siha stares at the short man. She admits she's never seen a real dwarf in her life. Jihan agrees. She turns to thank Sashimi for actually bringing them to a real contact. But the cleaner is gone. He already left. The blacksmith gets offended. He insists that he is not a dwarf. He calls that idea ridiculous. He claims he's a human who has lived his entire life in Korea. Do is completely shocked to hear he's Korean. Siha accuses him of lying. She says anyone with eyes can tell he's a dwarf. Jihan gets suspicious and demands to see his ID. The smith asks if this is some kind of comedy show, but he hands over his card. It proves that legally he is not a dwarf. But looking closely at the ID, they realize he's telling the truth. Jihan squints and asks if he's really only 27 years old. Because the photo doesn't look like him at all, they assume the ID must be fake. Jihan tells Siha to call the police. She gets angry, feeling like Sashimi probably tricked them again, and agrees to call. But the blacksmith ignores the drama. He notices something interesting and asks to see Jihan's sword for a second. Jihan asks why. The smith takes the sword and examines it. He says it's been a long time since he's seen a sword with such special scratches. He looks up and guesses that Jihan is a wind elementalist. Jihan is shocked and asks how he knows that. The smith says any first-class blacksmith can recognize a hero's class just by looking at their gear. He adds that unfortunately, this current sword is garbage. It wasn't built to handle the intensity of elemental power. The smith asks for a moment. He says he'll make the perfect weapon for an elementalist. He comes back with a sword, claiming it can withstand any kind of power. Jihan takes the weapon. The smith reveals the sword's name, Hoyo. Siha bluntly says that's a really terrible name for a sword. Time passes. Exam day arrives in the blink of an eye. Someone opens the door handle. The airbag's waifu and the protagonist arrive at the exam location. It's extremely crowded. Commenting on the crowd, Jihan thinks to himself that it's been a long time since he took the rank 4 exam, especially after being kicked out of the Kuros Guild. Suddenly, someone whispers behind him, "Loser." As Jihan walks by, people around start talking. They discuss how he was expelled from Kuros and can't believe he has the nerve to try again. One man says if he were in Jihan's place, he would have quit being a hero out of shame by now. Siha leans in and whispers, asking if the crowd is talking badly about him. Jihan just tells her to ignore it. He thinks about Doha, and he feels a wave of relief, because no one here seems to know about the strange events in Buchin. He decides to focus and do his best. Suddenly, a loud voice echoes, ordering everyone to be quiet. The man shouts that they're making way too much noise for a bunch of losers taking a simple rank 4 exam. He says it's time for a reality check. He scans the room and calls for the police. He calls everyone insignificant, says there's no one special here. Then he walks straight up to Jihan. He gets right in his face and tells him he doesn't meet the standards. This man is Hansik Bang, also known as Seong Bang. Jihan's eyes begin to glow. In his mind, he's cursing Doha. Chong Bang asks if Jihan agrees with him. A system window opens to calculate the pass rate. Jihan realizes Doha set him up. He only recommended him so he would fail. Cut to Doha relaxing, opening a cookie when his assistant walks in. She confirms she sent the recommendations he asked for. He's impressed by how fast she did it, but she looks confused. She found something strange. She asks Doha why he chose Sayon Bang as the evaluator. Back at the exam, chaos breaks out. Sion Bang stands in the center of the arena, waiting for 3 extras to attack him. He glares at them. He lectures them, saying they rushed in without any strategy or even knowing his weakness. He shouts, "Showtime," and he easily blows all 3 of them away. He humiliates them, calling them emitters. The 3 men fall to the ground, and Sion Bang stand alone. A window announces that Group 12 has been disqualified. Behind a one-way mirror, 3 observers are watching. One of them yells, "Damn." Someone asks if this is too harsh. A woman worries that at this rate, no one will pass. Then there's a guy with a screw loose named Han Seo Kim, a rank 4 evaluator. He acts arrogant, saying rank 5 heroes are basically just ordinary people. Another evaluator, Shino, wonders what they'll tell the bosses. Finally, a hooded man tells them to focus on the last group. His name is John Yusil. Someone says they'll finally get to see the epic guild in action. The arrogant man nods. He knows this kid is the one Doha personally recommended. He says everyone else in the group is from the Dice Guild. Siha and the protagonist walk toward the exam room. Someone in the crowd whispers that these 2 are about to get a serious reality check. Holding their weapons, they finally step into the arena. The messed-up evaluator comments that the protagonist looks tough, but criticizes his lack of flexibility. He says Sion Bang is squad leader for a reason. Suddenly, the system interface opens. It welcomes them to the rank 4 exam and explains the rules. They have 5 minutes. To pass, they simply need to survive successfully or force the evaluator to surrender. The airbag's waifu panics. She asks how 2 rookies are supposed to stay alive against a pro. Sion Bang spreads his intense aura. Jihan analyzes him, wondering how he fought all those groups alone without a single scratch. Jihan turns to Siha and tells her to cover him, like she did for her father, like they did in Amon. She nods and agrees. Jihan activates his buffs. He warns her that this fight will be much harder than monsters. The system announces the start immediately. Sion Bang throws a cheap shot. He delivers a brutal kick straight to Jihan's chest. The protagonist barely manages to block it in time. Jihan complains that attacking the moment the bell rings is unfair. Suddenly, an explosion shakes the arena. Look at him, he's in trouble. Sion Bang attacks him. A punch aimed to give him free dental surgery. But his fist hits something hard. It's not his face. It's a barrier. Sion Bang is confused. He wonders how it was blocked. Then he looks to the side and realizes it wasn't her. It was Jihan, protecting him from distance. Jihan is on the ground, but he saved him. Sion Bang smiles and admits Doha's recommendation wasn't just a bad joke after all. Without hesitation, Sion Bang stomps on Jihan's chest again. Then he starts running. He grabs his wooden sword and attacks. Jihan quickly gets up, and they begin exchanging rapid strikes. Sion Bang taunts him. He says the difference in power is huge. He claims he could crush them even with a wooden stick. Jihan's eyes start glowing. He knows he needs to create distance immediately. He triggers Wind Bomb and pushes the evaluator back. Shangbong does a smooth backflip to land safely. He clicks his tongue and says dealing with a wind magic type like Jihan is really annoying. But Jihan is already moving. He triggers his vanishing ability and uses haste, instantly reappearing right behind Sion Bang. Sion Bang immediately senses the attack from behind. Back in the observation room, someone asks why he was chosen as the evaluator, saying it makes passing almost impossible. The assistant agrees that this is bad news for Epic. Doha explains the choice. He says Sion Bang is the only swordsman who can cut through wind. And in the arena, Sion Bang wears a crazy smile as he triggers his skill. Rapid attack art, cutting whirlwind. Jihan goes flying, coughing blood on the ground, while the evaluator stands tall. Jihan lies there, admitting to himself that he's not at full speed. He's still recovering after fighting the mutant, and on top of that, his bad sword is draining way too much mana. Shangbong looks down at him and asks if that's really his best. Despite Mr. Yunin's recommendation, he prepares to disqualify the protagonist. But suddenly, she jumps in from behind. She screams for Jihan to move. Her attack pushes Shangbong back, creating some space. She stands firmly in front of the protagonist, gripping her staff. She tells him she'll handle the rest. She decides she can't always hide behind him. Shangbong laughs mockingly. He says he doesn't have time to play with weaklings. Siha angrily replies that she's not weak. She pulls her hair back, revealing her pointed ears. Siha introduces herself as Siha Kim, an elf. Chongbang yawns and says he already knew she was an elf. He shouts, asking if some low-level mage really thinks she can fight a swordsman. He unleashes a barrage of attacks on the waifu, but she closes her eyes. She declares that elves walk the path of mana. Amazingly, she dodges every single attack. Now it's her turn. She casts Cutting Wind. Shangbong calls her an idiot and asks if she really thinks a simple spell will work. Then he notices a magic circle forming behind him. He mocks her for trying a sneak attack, but then two more appear. He's confused. How can a rank 5 cast multiple attacks like this? He counts again. It's not just 3. Sia, she's casting spells simultaneously. Her ability locks him in place. He admits she actually trapped him. A massive explosion engulfs the area. Sia shields her face from the shockwave. She's sure he couldn't survive that. But as the smoke clears, Sion Bang is still standing there. He dusts himself off and says it wasn't bad. He admits her plan to corner him in a small space was actually pretty smart. But suddenly, Shangbong teleports. Right behind her. He whispers that she's too slow. Sia is shocked that he endured all 7 spells without falling. Changbang ignores her. He says he was just waiting for the protagonist to move. He grips his sword and mocks Jihan, saying his arrogant attitude will cost him the victory. But then Jihan realizes something important. He was wrong before. The sword wasn't draining his energy. It was Jihan himself, wasting mana like an emitter. Jihan decides to change tactics. He focuses a small amount of energy and compresses it as tightly as possible into a single point. Finally, he triggers his ultimate move. One sword. The scene shifts to a luxurious office filled with trophies. Someone knocks on the door. A young man stands by the window and tells them to come in. A blond man with blue eyes enters to give a report on the Guts squad leader status. The boss replies with a mutter. He asks how Gong Yu is adjusting to the team. The blond man clarifies, does he mean Gong Yu Kim? The boss confirms. He wants to know about the man who replaced Jihan after he was kicked out. We meet the man at the window. Jungs Park, the owner of the Kuros Guild. The blond man admits there have been some stability issues, but they're adjusting. Jungs confidently says Gong Yu will soon surpass the protagonist. But the blond man looks nervous. He says he has something else to report. Then he drops the bomb. Jihan has advanced in the rank 4 exam. The boss is confused. He asks how that trash protagonist managed to do it, remembering he barely passed before. The blond man explains it seems Doha personally recommended him. Jungs tells him to repeat that, completely stunned. The scene shifts back to the arena. Jihan stands tall, looking down at Songbang. Meanwhile, the evaluator lies beaten and injured on the ground. Seyoung Bang asks how a rookie like him caught Mr. Yunan's attention. Then he exhales and gives up. He admits Jihan won. He mutters that Doha conveniently forgot to mention the kid was an elementalist. Later, Do is relaxing. The waifu smiles and asks how he mastered elemental power so quickly. Jihan shrugs and says he has no idea. But deep down, he realizes that intense battle forced him to improve his control. He wonders if this was Doha's plan from the start. He turns to Siha and praises her, saying she did a great job distracting the evaluator. She replies modestly that it was nothing. Jihan smiles and gives her good news. They officially passed the battle evaluation. But Jihan reminds her it's too early to celebrate. They still have to pass the interview. They sit down and watch other candidates leave the room in disappointment. Finally, someone calls the Epic Guild, announcing they're next. One evaluator says the squad looks well prepared. Another says their fight had some very interesting moments. Siha and Jihan walk into the room. A gentleman begins speaking, saying if no one objects, they should start. But immediately, someone interrupts and says they should fail them. A naysayer starts criticizing. He calls Jihan arrogant and doubts his ability to protect someone in real danger. This man is Dengali, a minor member of the Warriors Guild. He declares it's pointless to let this squad pass. Another voice agrees, saying they should disqualify them immediately. Someone else says then no one will pass today. Jihan wonders why they're shouting so much. He thinks they're just trying to intimidate them and make a strong impression. The gentleman ignores the yelling. He thanks them for coming and tells them to relax. Siha introduces them as members of Epic, realizing she messed up the paperwork. The gentleman quickly flips through the documents in front of him. He says they were the only ones who actually won their battle. He calls impressive. Jihan replies sarcastically that it was just luck, and Siha plays along, thanking him. The black-haired man speaks up, saying since they defeated the evaluator, there's no need for further debate. Suddenly, The panel's ugly duckling asks a strange question. He asks if she can even see through her hair and suggests she tuck it behind her ears. Siha agrees and pulls her hair back. The guys are stunned. They shout for everyone to look at what's right in front of them. The duckling instantly changes the room's atmosphere. He declares she's an elf, licking his lips in a weird way. He says he thought she was pure blood and apologizes. The black-haired man immediately cuts him off, saying his attitude is rude and disrespectful. The duckling apologizes again, claiming it's just a bad habit. Then he tells Mr. Protagonist to stop staring at him like he wants to kill him. Siha tells Jihan it's okay. Jihan exhales, thinking this weird man isn't the main problem right now. The duckling asks if they can finally move on with the interview. Before answering, the protagonist realizes that man wanted exactly this kind of reaction. The interviewer asks if Siha's father really researches monsters at an institute in Kyoto. Siha confirms it. She adds that based on her father's research data, Epic successfully defeated the mutant cockatrice. The confirmed answer is yes. The interviewer is surprised. He says for a new guild with only 2 members, they've already done incredible work. Meanwhile, the duckling turns his attention to her. He says after being a hero for a decade, he's never seen a half-elf running a guild. He narrows his eyes and says he has only one question for her. He asks a hypothetical question. If a group of elves attack Korea, whose side would she be on? Siha freezes, completely shocked by the hostility. She's stunned. She asks if he can stop dragging this out. The interviewer looks confused. Finally, Jihan gets angry. He stands up and asks if mocking people is standard procedure. He calls out the Warriors Guild. He says the purpose here wasn't to check their skills, but just to insult his guild leader. The other 2 interviewers watch this disaster in shock. The duckling replies, claiming that as an interviewer, he can ask whatever he wants. The black-haired man tries to mediate and stop the argument. But Jihan declares that if this man keeps insulting his guild, they don't even care about passing. They're ready to leave. The panel begs them to calm down, insisting this isn't a place for fighting. Siha, completely devastated, walks out of the room. She's sure they're ruined. The scene shifts outside Epic headquarters. The big airbag's waifu is drinking juice, looking sad. Jihan walks up and apologizes. He feels guilty for causing a scene and possibly failing the exam. Siha tells him it's okay. She genuinely thanks him for standing up for her in there. She admits no one has ever protected her like that in situations like this before. Jihan notices she keeps refreshing a webpage on her phone. He asks if she's okay and why she's torturing herself. She explains she's just curious. Jihan apologizes again. Suddenly, Siha says the website is releasing the results. She reads the screen. She announces that the squad is advancing to rank 4. They both freeze. They look at each other, unable to believe what they're seeing. Back in the interview room, the other judges ask the duckling why he made that decision. They ask if he's sure. He says yes. He apologizes for the earlier drama. He admits he crossed the line, but claims he was just testing them because he was curious. He tosses an apple into the air and catches it. He says the name, Epic. He wonders how far the 2 of them will go. But in his thoughts, he smiles and calls Jihan and Siha arrogant kids. He keeps thinking he wants to watch them climb the ranks. But it's not out of kindness. The ugly duckling swears to himself that later, he'll ruin their lives. Meanwhile, 2 people sitting in front of PC are completely stunned. They're wondering how they even passed. The scene shifts to Payu City in a rank 2 zone. A high-speed bus stops. A huge crowd of fans holding signs and journalists are waiting. The door opens and someone steps down. A reporter loudly announces that the Handy Heroes Guild squad leader has arrived. He tells Mr. Kim to look toward the cameras. Someone in the crowd screams their love for Guts. Security guards struggle to hold the fans back, shouting for them to stay away. Guts puts on his fake charm. He smiles and says there's no need for that kind of behavior. He thanks everyone for gathering today, but asks them to stay behind the line for their own safety. As Guts' team enters Amazon, people call him a knight and wish them good luck. But the moment Guts steps inside the barrier, his real face shows. He complains that the bugs outside were so loud his ears hurt. His muscular companion says there were even more people than last time. Guts angrily asks how they keep finding their location every time. From behind Guts, someone speaks up. He asks if Guts saw that girl standing at the entrance. He says just looking at her made him want to throw up. That boy is Gongyu Kim. Gongyu changes the subject and asks what kind of girls Guts likes. Guts answers directly that he likes beautiful girls. He smiles and says he'll call some beautiful girls over later. He invites Guts to come to the club tonight. Kyalam interrupts. She says Mia Lee is standing right there and tells him to stop talking nonsense. Ganyu smoothly shifts again. He says Saelim should come to the club too. She laughs and asks if he really thinks she'd go to a place like that. Ganyu knows exactly what to say. He convinces her that many famous models want to meet her. She immediately agrees. She gets excited and says she'll invite her handsome friends too. Ganyu thinks to himself how easy it is to control these idiots. With just a little push, they all dance in the palm of his hand. But when he looks at Mia Lee, it's difficult. She's different. He can't understand what she's thinking. Mia Lee stares at him and asks what's wrong. He quickly looks away and says nothing. In his mind, he thinks he'll have to keep a very close eye on her. Suddenly, Guts hears footsteps. He turns around. 3 unfamiliar people are standing there. The one in front greets Kim. He says it's been a long time since he last saw Guts in the Amazon. Guts replies that yeah, it's been a few months. Scarface asks about the other member. Guts responds, who? The man clarifies, the one who used to carry your bag. As usual, Guts lies and says that guy left, and this is his replacement. Ganyu introduces himself as the team support. Scarface asks if that's true, and says that's really unfortunate. Kim wants to know why. Scarface explains that Jihan saved them about a year ago. He says Jihan's movements were on another level, and he couldn't understand how someone carrying bags could do all that. Then Scarface adds that if Jihan ever needs a guild, he should let them know, because he'd gladly take him in. Both groups say goodbye and go their separate ways. Guts is furious. Someone asks if Jihan was really that good. Ganyu replies that all he ever heard was that Jihan was dead weight, who just got in the way. Ganyu also says Scarface is giving Jihan way too much credit. As Ganyu keeps talking, Guts asks for his sword. A dinosaur-like monster attacks everyone, and Guts quickly demands his sword again. Guts ignites his blade with fire and leaps toward the monster, but his mind is still stuck on Jihan. The scene changes. A woman says she can't believe it, while others realize they forgot their belongings. A traffic guard announces that this area is now a rank 4 zone and tells everyone to leave immediately. One man worries about property values dropping, while another wonders if they'll even have a home to return to. Jihan and Kim arrive, asking if this is the right place. Kim says maybe. Jihan confirms that this is the rank 4 area with saber-toothed tigers. One of the kittens jumps toward them. Running at the tiger, Jihan calls out to Saho. Saho starts casting abilities. Jihan draws his sword and keeps charging. His attack lands directly. The poor creature is split into 2. Kim says she wasn't sure she was ready for a rank 4 area and thought the monsters would be stronger. Jihan replies that the mutant they fought earlier was a rare case. Kim asks how they'll bring the tiger's body back to the first floor. Jihan suggests calling the cleaning service. Suddenly, someone screams for help. Sahu says it's a civilian who didn't evacuate and tells them to hurry. But that voice sounds familiar to Jihan, like he knows that man. The guy runs up beside them, saying they're epic guild heroes, and asks if everything is okay. It's Sashimi, begging them to save him from a kitten. Kim recognizes him immediately. It's the cleanup guy. He says the kittens were quickly taken care of. Sahu says it was lucky to run into him here, calling it fate. When she asks if he agrees, Sashimi explains he just needed to use the bathroom and didn't know the area was being sealed off. Jihan says he'll let it slide this time, because Sashimi got them good equipment. Saho comments on how kind-hearted Jihan is. After everything settles down, Jihan asks why Sashimi hasn't officially joined their guild as the cleanup guy. Sashimi asks, why me? Jihan says that despite what happened before, he still trusts him. Sashimi assures them they can leave all the bodies to him. Then Sashimi runs toward the building again, repeating that they can trust him with the bodies. Saho asks if he's going to betray them again. Jihan reassures her that he won't, and says they need his job anyway. He suggests they move on since everything is fine now. Suddenly, someone arrives shouting, "Heroes, stop killing innocent creatures. Stop oppressing the creatures." The man keeps yelling, saying creatures deserve respect too, and they're living beings just like everyone else. He shouts even louder, "Respect all life." Saho asks if these people are part of some activist group. Jihan replies that they're from IUPC, an organization that talks about humans and monsters living together. As they speak, they notice that protests around MA areas have increased recently. When Saho asks if Jihan agrees with this ideology, he firmly answers, absolutely not, calling it nonsense. He asks if they'd still stick to it, even after watching heroes die to the monsters they defend. A security guard tells the group, They can't enter this area. Meanwhile, a bystander yells at the heroes to hurry up and save their friends, the creatures. The guard shouts that they broke through the barrier to get inside. The bystanders scream, "The heroes are here. Don't let them escape." Seho and Jihan find themselves surrounded by activists. Jihan wonders what these people are doing. One crazy protester screams, "Look at all the creatures." He asks how heroes can be so heartless. Another activist apologizes to the monster, saying heroes who behave like killers have no right to call themselves saviors. Jihan can't understand why the civilians are so angry and hopes the association will handle the situation. Doha arrives, telling everyone to get out of his way. He asks if they're done with the kid. Jihan turns around and asks, "Who are you?" Doha smiles and replies, "Me? I'm the man you hate the most." With a flick of his wrist, Doha creates a massive wall of earth. He grins at Jihan and asks, "So now what will you do?" After raising the wall, Doha stands there silently, watching everyone. Some people call him the Earth Dragon. To others, he's just a clown. In the West, people know him as Earthquake Man. Doha releases a small portion of his power, announcing that he likes being called the bad boy. A frightened bystander starts panting. This bad boy is Doha Yun. Another man wonders what the #1 ranked hero is doing here. Jihan mutters to himself, "Why is it always this guy? He just shows up out of nowhere." Jihan wonders if Doha has nothing better to do with his time. Doha shouts again that everyone should leave immediately or go straight to hell. He calls out a name, and suddenly the area shakes with an explosion. A dragon appears right beside Doha. Jihan is stunned. What is this? He wonders if it's really an elemental. The creature is enormous, a Terra elemental. Doha orders his dragon to stop everyone. Whips made of earth shoot toward the crowd. Every protester gets caught. They're lifted off the ground, one after another. Jihan tells Seho they need to get out of there. But someone says a certified hero can't just run away like that. Seho complains that their hands were tied. Jihan can only stare in shock at Doha's insane power. He captured all those people without injuring a single one. Doha apologizes for making them wait. He says he heard that Jihan and Seho passed the rank 4 exam. That comment reminds Jihan of his battle with the monster. Snapping back, Jihan thanks Doha, sarcastically calling him a merciful evaluator. Doha just laughs, admitting Bang was intense, but was a good man deep down. Jihan fires back, questioning the word intense, because Bang almost killed them. But Doha explains he knew surviving that hardship would make them stronger. It makes Jihan wonder which of them is more powerful. Jihan immediately asks if Doha came all this way, just to fight him. Just then, another voice interrupts, asking, "Is that Doha?" Onlookers begin questioning why he was in a rank 4 area with that particular squad. Seho explains the newcomers were from another guild. Doha lets out a long breath, saying they were getting too much attention and needed to leave. The scene shifts to a busy construction site, full of workers. One worker greets Doha and asks why he wasn't working. Doha simply says he was handling something. Jihan realizes this must be Dice Guild's base, and there's so many people. Doha explains they're expanding the training grounds and apologizes for the noise. Jihan says it's fine. Soon, they're inside the guild building. All 3 enter. Jihan comments on how peaceful it is. It feels more like a coffee shop than a guild headquarters. He notices all the construction noise outside has completely vanished. But Seho is surprised. She says shielding a building this well takes an enormous amount of mana. But that's what you'd expect from a major guild. When Jihan asks if it's really that powerful, she confirms it. She estimates the barrier maintenance cost at around 20 billion won. Jihan thinks out loud. Can a guild really make that much money? Suddenly, a woman approaches, thanking them for noticing her work. She asks Seho if she's interested in mana barriers and praises her for such an accurate cost estimate. The woman introduces herself as Jae-kyung Park, the vice leader of Dice Guild. Jihan is shocked, asking if she's really the vice leader. Seho says she thought Jae-kyung was just an assistant. Doha asks Jae-kyung if she remembers them and tells her to book a meeting room. Jae-kyung agrees, but then asks where Doha was, saying he missed all his appointments. As she pinches his cheek, Doha asks what she's doing in front of the guild master. She snaps back that if he wants respect, he should stop acting like a child. Jihan mutters that the 2 of them are louder than the construction site. After their argument ends, Jihan and Seho follow Doha to the meeting room. Doha gets straight to the point, asking why they think he brought them here. Jihan guesses it has something to do with his elemental. Doha confirms he's right. At that moment, a bright light flashes. A small fox-like dog appears, making a meowing sound. Doha introduces his elemental partner, Mumu. He asks if they recognize the creature. When it handled the protesters, Jihan can't believe it. He asks if his tiny dog was the same thing. That became a giant dragon. Mumu complains that he was busy helping with construction. But Doha promises the meeting will end quickly. Mumu turns and asks why they're guests. Jihan greets him, and Seho is completely charmed by the little dog. Meanwhile, Jihan is just wondering what is going on. Doha tells Jihan to summon his elemental, and Jihan agrees. When Jihan calls, a glowing green orb appears. As soon as it shows up, it moves toward the small dog. Doha says he knew Jihan's elemental was wind-based, and asks its name. Jihan calls it Sylph. Doha explains that Sylph is the reason for this meeting. He says that in all his 17 years as an elementalist, Momo was the only one he ever found in Korea. Doha says he checked Jihan's records, and there was no mention of him being an elementalist. So Doha assumed Jihan became one after joining Epic. But Doha says the timeline doesn't make sense. He asks Jihan how he formed a contract with a wind elemental. Just as Jihan is about to speak, Sehu steps forward and asks if she can tell the story. She explains that Sylph belonged to someone else first. When Doha asks who, she says it was her mother, Erna, the last human to contract with Sylph. Doha accepts the answer. He admits he never expected Jihan to have a contract with Erna's elemental, leaving him silent. Doha thinks to himself that elementals should disappear when their owners die. But it seems he was wrong. Resting his hand on his chin, Doha decides that despite his doubts, it doesn't matter now. Then Doha announces he'll finally tell them the real reason he called them here. Sehu says she thought it was to learn about Sylph. Doha confirms that was part of it. But there are two important things to discuss. Jihan asks what he means. Doha promises to be direct. First, Dice Guild's leaders want to buy Epic. A shocked Sehu immediately asks, why? Doha presents his offer. Full control over Epic. In exchange for 20 billion won. Angrily, Sehu stands up and asks if he's serious. Doha assures her he is, and even says he can raise the price. He tells them they have a choice. Stay at a two-person guild, or let him help them expand and bring in new members. As part of the deal, Doha promises to personally teach Jihan how to control his elemental. He also guarantees he won't interfere in their squad's activities. Then Doha asks Jihan for his thoughts, saying it would be ideal for him. Overwhelmed, Sehu admits the offer is generous, but she's completely stunned. Doha suggests they take time to think about it. But before he could demand an answer quickly, Jihan interrupts, saying he won't accept. Doha is surprised by the response. Jihan firmly declares that Epic is not for sale. Not now, and not ever. Sehu falls completely silent. Suddenly, a bag is thrown onto the ground. Sashimi arrives where the activists were captured, asking what happened. He announces he finished his work, but can't find Jihan. Excited, Sashimi says he was desperate to share his accomplishment with Jihan. The scene returns to the negotiation. Jihan tells Doha that he can double the offer as much as he wants, but even then, it still won't be enough. He declares that, just like Dice, Epic will also become a huge guild in the future. Hearing this, Doha's face immediately darkens. Then Sehu, who had been silent, finally speaks up, asking Jihan who gave him the right to make that decision. As Sehu cries and grabs onto Jihan, Doha suddenly bursts in a loud laughter, and it only grows louder. After his fit, Doha says that such an ambition is far too big for a two-person guild. He admits he didn't expect Jihan to be this arrogant. Jihan turns to leave the room, saying that he trusts his guild. Doha adjusts his glasses and asks, trust? He says Jihan is talking as if the deal has already been decided, and adds that he honestly finds him very entertaining. With that, Doha withdraws his offer. Sehu tries to remind him that he is the guild leader, but unfortunately, she is cut off mid-sentence. Doha calls his assistant, saying that he is returning something that belongs to them. He asks if they remember a certain stone. He shows them the mutant's mana crystal that they fought before. Jihan asks why Doha is giving the crystal back. Doha explains that the association has finished its research, and he had planned to return it after acquiring the guild. Instead, he says he will return it now. As a gesture between two strong elementalists, Jihan thanks him. Just as he begins to say something more, he is interrupted. Sylph, who was with the small dog, flies straight toward the mana crystal and crashes into it. A bright light fills the room. Standing behind Jun, Doha explains that mana crystals are used to evolve elementals. He advises Jaehin that if he wants to become stronger, he should collect more. Doha says that the more crystals he gathers, the closer Sylph will be to materializing. Jaehin asks if that was true. Could Sylph really gain a physical body? The scene then shifts to the Korean branch of the IUPC.